Now, what about my arguments for the existence of God? Are they any better? Well, first I argued that the origin of the universe points to the existence of God and gave a deductive argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. The universe has a cause. Now, Dr. Flew in response said, but we must explain things in terms of other things which are simply brute facts. But what my argument is that because the universe began to exist, it cannot be plausibly our stopping point as that brute fact. Why is that? Well, because of that first premise, that whatever begins to exist has a cause. Dr. Flew has to refute that first premise if he thinks that the universe is going to be the brute fact and the stopping point. That first premise, I think, has two lines of support behind it. First would be the metaphysical intuition that something cannot come out of nothing. Out of nothing, nothing comes. And that's why if the universe began to exist, it cries out for a cause. Secondly, that causal premise is constantly confirmed in our experience. Nobody believes that, say, a raging Bengal tiger or an Eskimo village could suddenly pop into existence out of nothing right here in the field house. So it seems to me that that first premise is very plausible, and that therefore if the universe began to exist, it must have a cause. Now, Dr. Flew admits the universe began to exist. In his book, Atheistic Humanism, he says we now have excellent natural scientific reasons for believing that the universe did in fact have an explosive beginning. And therefore it follows logically and inescapably that the universe has a cause. Now, he asks, does the universe, or the cause of the universe, have the attributes of God? And he suggests that it doesn't. Let me make two responses. I am using the definition of God that was used in the original Copleston-Russell debate. In that debate, Copleston proposed, by God, I quote, we mean a supreme personal being distinct from the world and the creator of the world. And Russell responded, I accept this definition. On that definition, I have given evidence for the existence of God. Secondly, remember I'm offering a cumulative case. The first argument gives us an immaterial, timeless, changeless, spaceless, beginningless, uncaused personal creator of the universe. The second argument gives us an intelligent designer of the universe. The third argument gives us a source of moral value and all goodness. The fourth argument gives us a God who is active in history in the person of Jesus. And the last one gives us a God who can be immediately known and experienced. And I think the cumulative force of these arguments does indeed give us many of the attributes of God. My second argument was based on the complex order of the universe. And here I argued that the fine-tuning of the initial conditions is due to either law, chance, or design. It's not due to law or chance, because these are initial conditions and they cannot be explained by scientific law. Paul Davies, in his book, The Mind of God, says there is absolutely no evidence in favor of these conditions being necessary. He says even if the laws of physics were unique, it doesn't follow that the physical universe itself is unique. The laws must be augmented by cosmic initial conditions. There is nothing in present ideas about laws of initial conditions remotely to suggest that their consistency with the laws of physics would imply uniqueness. Far from it. It seems then that the physical universe does not have to be the way it is. It could have been otherwise. And I showed that in fact the universe is balancing on a razor's edge that cries out for some sort of explanation. It can't be from law. It can't be from chance, because the chances of this occurring are simply incomprehensible, and therefore the best explanation is design. Now, Dr. Flew says, but we don't infer design because of complexity. We infer design because something is an artifact. But of course the question is, how do we recognize something as an artifact? Well, we do so by recognizing a specified improbability about that. For example, two archaeologists digging in the ground finding certain rocks shaped like arrowheads or other implements don't say, oh, look how the processes of sedimentation and metamorphosis have created these uncanny rocks. They immediately recognize the presence of design because of the improbability of that specified complexity. Or think of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If we were to receive from outer space a message of the first 100 prime numbers in sequence, we would instantly recognize that as the product of intelligent design, just like in the Contact movie. So that these specified probabilities are the way we detect design all the time in ordinary life and experience. And those very specified probabilities are present in the Big Bang itself. And thus, in the absence of an explanation by law or chance, it seems to me that the best explanation is design. I also gave an argument based on objective moral values. Remember, I showed that in the absence of God, everything becomes socio-culturally relative. Everything is relative. There is no absolute right and wrong, unless you have a transcendent vantage point to transcend socio-cultural relativism. Dr. Flew made no response to this argument at all. I also argued that the facts of the empty tomb, the appearances of Jesus, and the origin of the disciples' faith are best explained by the hypothesis of the resurrection of Jesus. I await any alternative naturalistic hypothesis which is more plausible than that. And finally, my immediate experience of God allows me to know that he exists. In the absence of good arguments for atheism, I see no reason to deny my immediate experience of God and my belief that he exists.
The selection of these things. Immediate experience. We did a distinction between two senses of that word experience. There's the philosopher's sense, in which things like dreams, visions, hallucinations, and the philosophers say sense data are experiences. And there's experience of things where a person who's had experience of things has actually had dealings with them. Now, it seems to me that for people to say that they've had experience of either the Christian God or of Shiva the Destroyer or of any other God, well, it's as Thomas Hobbes said, if someone tells me that God spake to them in a dream, why should I not say that they dreamed that God spake to them? I have no doubt at all that Dr. Craig's experience appears to him to be that, but this is a matter in which the subject's testimony is not authoritative. Of course it's authoritative if we're asking whether they had the experience in the philosopher's sense. The honest testimony is the last word. But when someone says they've had an experience of dealing with cows and so on, that means they've actually had dealings with real cows. Well, so much for the appeal to religious experience. I was deeply unimpressed by my friend John Hicks's book about experience of God, in which he never confronted this obvious difficulty. Anyway. Then whatever begins to exist has a cause. Yes, absolutely. This is not a truth of logic, however. This, like the principle that every event has a cause, is an experienced truth within the universe. And it is wholly arbitrary and prejudicial to think, oh, well, clearly the whole universe must have had a cause. So we now look for it. Then persons. Why do I have difficulty with the idea of an incorporeal person? Well, if I was asked to explain the meaning of the word person to someone who didn't, I'd point around the place here. And if someone said a person has called at the house, they would think that someone had called. The second thing I would say about this is that no one, well, maybe some of my Australian friends have said that the brain has experiences. I think the conscious experiences are experiences of a material thing, namely a person or material object, I should say, because material object. They are experiences of a human being, or in some cases of animals.